One Piece!
Death, sorrow, betrayal. The Wano Arc hasn't disappointed so far. This is by far some of Oda's best work yet, and there is still more to come. I know there's a lot of theories going around about the traitor and who people think he or she might be. It seems the two most thought to be the traitor are Kanjuro and Shinobu. I wouldn't bother going over what people are saying about these two and why they think they are the traitor, as I don't believe it to be either of them. No, to us they have both shown more than enough loyalty towards Odin to be expected of being a traitor. No, who we have in mind is even more closest to home, someone who should and shouldn't be suspected and yet can only make logical sense. In this video, we'll explain who that traitor is. Enjoy the video. The traitor is Odin, the lurking legend by legendary anime. Hi everyone, Flying Panda. Before we begin, please click like on the video and subscribe if you haven't, and of course, join our Discord. Before we talk about the traitor, let's have a refresher on one of the big themes of this arc, turret. Turret cards to be precise. We know that Kaido uses the playing card theme with his crew and other underlings, like Doflamingo and his crew, but like in the older video we touched on, looking at turret cards being more heavily connected rather than the standard playing cards which we all know. Playing cards have a rich history behind them and are strongly linked to turret cards. They all share the suits, but some may differ to others, but ultimately they are the same and both have the same characters, from numbers to the pictured cards. Only turret cards are much more detailed with their artwork and can be used for such things like fortune telling, as seen by Basil Hawkins, again someone who now relates as one of Kaido's underlings. In turret cards, there are several cards that show signs are connected with betrayal, each in their own way can be connected. For the purpose of this theory, we will just focus on one, the Nine of Swords. Nine of Swords, like the Ten of Swords. This image has a sword seemingly going through the figure's back. Although it's not actually piercing like the Ten of Swords, it's still an image that invokes that feeling of being stabbed in the back. Notice also the image carved in the bed. One figure seems attacking another. Again, another symbol of treachery and hurting someone. The Nine of Swords is the kind of betrayal that wounds deeply. If you ever had someone you love completely turn on you, then you know the feeling of this card. The reason we've chosen this particular card is because it's not so much about betrayal like in the event of someone's death, but that it has a few meanings or an aspect of betrayal that can relate to a person's action, effectively more than one said person. Lately, it seems that the focus of the betrayal is on that of Odin, but it also is of the retainers too, and what's been happening in the present, not just what's happening in the past. As such, this isn't a betrayal of one person, but that of several people. What the cards describe is not as much someone hurting someone as physical level, but rather an emotional one. Having someone you love betray you is more emotional hurting than them physically hurting you. Towards Odin himself, he was loved by all those around him, even his retainers. It wasn't just loyalty they felt towards him, but love. Perhaps the kind of love a child has for a parent, or someone you view as close to a parent. It's this love that strongly makes us believe that none of the retainers could turn on Odin or betray him. Odin simply impacted on them so deeply, and when we looked at them, we're going to see the same sort of loyalty and love as the Whitebeard pirates had for Whitebeard himself. Yes, for those who would bring up the point of Blackbeard betraying the Whitebeard pirates, so too could one of the retainers. However, Teach had not shown once, past or present, any love or loyalty towards the white-bearded parents. As it was even stated, Teach had laid in wait for those years, waiting for the right moment to make his move and set his plan into action. And from what we've seen of the retainers, there seems to be no evidence to suggest one of them had a reason to commit an act of treason. We could be wrong, but this is how it looks from our point of view. This leaves only one suspect for the traitor to be. The one closest and loved most by Odin, Toki. The wife, Kozuki Toki. Now the big question is what reasons she could have to betray her own husband and his loyal retainers, who have sworn to protect her and her children too. Well, to answer that, let's look back on where we first met her. She cleared from Wano and was born there, yet her first appearance reveals she says to Odin, "I always dream of going to Wano. Will you take me there?" Now this statement suggests she's never been to Wano or even seen it, and given that her death only jumps forward in time, if she was from Wano 830 years ago, then surely she'd still be there and after jumping into the future, which suggests that at the time or moving forward in time, she wasn't in Wano. But why? It could be that the time she came from was just before Wano closed off its borders, so she was able to leave at that time, or perhaps she was banished from Wano, given that the people of Wano viewed devil-fruit powers as witchcraft, so maybe she was viewed as a witch and was driven out. If that was the case, then she could have had the same intentions as Orochi and seek revenge on Wano, or mainly the Kozuki clan for banishing her and closing off the borders that she could not return. Given the time she came from, you could even suggest that she's acting on orders from the past after the war, either for the ancients or the world government, depending on which side she fought on. But what if there's a simpler explanation for her betrayal? One, that she didn't want to commit, but was bound by love and for the purpose of a better tomorrow. This is what it boils down to. The real traitor is none other than Odin himself, and yes, we'll explain why. Odin knew that he couldn't assume the title of Shogun, nor with the risk of his people being in danger of the war between himself and Orochi and Kaido, and as we know, he tried to buy the peace by sacrificing his own honor for the sake of the people. However, Odin already knew something else, something that hardly anyone could know, that the new dawn was coming. Odin traveled with Roger, they found Laughdale and found out the truth, the history. And like he tells Toki in his letter before death, he knows that someone is coming who can defeat Kaido and change not only Wano, but the world for the better. As to how Odin could know this is unclear. Perhaps it's set in stone, literally in the real poneglyph, or maybe a seer foretold them of it. Either way, Odin knew and even of around the time it would happen. So for him to know even the time of it happening suggests he knows of the events that lead up to it, meaning everything that's happened has been set into motion to lead up to now. The traitor isn't betraying Odin or Kozuki clan. They are leading events to ensure that those who need to be there at Wano are there at the time and place. Had there been no info suggesting the time which Momo and Ko would reappear in time, they would have had to hastily leave Wano, which leads to the series of events that led to Momo and Kinemon meeting Luffy and the Straw Hats. Granted that even if Luffy hadn't met Momo, he still might have teamed up with Law anyway back on Pankhaza to take down Kaido. Let's not forget that Law's real goal was to take down Doflamingo and was even willing to give up his own life to do so. He even didn't believe he would survive the battle, so had no plan for it afterwards. The point is, had the information not been leaked of the 20-year time skip, the events of the present might not have played out how they did. Even Jack being given a means to locate Zou to hunt Raizo, yet another event that led to Luffy having more reason and motivation to take down Kaido, and in turn led to the first bit of information about the road poneglyphs. Toki, likely under Odin's instructions, was asked to make sure that all these events made to happen, therefore she must freely give the intel and assume the part of the traitor to ensure all goes to plan. Something about the last page of chapter 972 led us to believe that Odin isn't even dead in the present time. We debated that while he was shot in the head, there should be no question that he's dead. But then what if he's not? How did he survive? The most simplest answer is Haki. The bullet never really made it to his brain and his Haki defected it, but then he fell into the pot of boiling oil. Hard to believe that he could survive that, even if he stood in there for an hour or more, but once again, Haki could explain that. It's unrealistic to assume that he used Haki while standing in the pot of oil, as he seemed to be suffering from the boiling, and had not been suffering, he would have been displeased at Orochi and given him a reason to revoke the deal. Well, another reason anyway. It's hard to say if Odin could have survived the boiling and shot to the head while a bullet to the brain is almost immediate death. There is rare cases of people surviving, so let's assume he didn't die. How did he get out of it? His wife Toki, of course. Her power is out of time. She had sent him ahead in time. Even 20 years is before Odin's castle got destroyed, so he would appear ahead of time to the rest. But let's assume for a moment that Toki had planned this out ahead of time. What is the full extent of her power? Can he only send people ahead in time? There's a saying, time heals all wounds, or time is the great healer. Is it possible that her power has the power to heal, or speed up the healing process? If so, then could she have used that power on Odin at a point before he would have died, and in turn send him ahead in time to avoid anyone noticing him to still be alive? The main reason we suggest that Odin could still be alive is in the cover page of chapter 631. There is someone drinking with Crocus, an old friend who dressed like a samurai. If Odin did survive and was sent ahead in time, and assuming he wasn't fully healed, would it make sense for him to go see not only a doctor but an old ally and friend to whom he can trust? And if he was sent forward in time, then his body would have gone missing from the pot, which suggests why Orochi is fearful of vengeful spirits. He may believe that Odin's body will come back to haunt him, or his soul at least. It could be that they thought his body dissolved in the boiling oil and made him an empty grave, like Kinnaman, and so on. Odin's death scene is very much like that of the movie Terminator 2 of the second Terminator's death scene. The movie also is heavily centered around time travel, and the title of the movie is Judgment Day. Given that Odin's sacrifice was to make the people of Wano aware of who really is ruling the country and that the people are in danger, we say that could be seen as their Judgment Day, as it's too late for them to stand and fight at the time, and they're sealed to their fate. Let's not forget that Odin mentioned a while ago that the lurking legend had a connection to Whitebeard, so wouldn't Odin fit the idea of the lurking legend? His feats alone have earned him the title of a legend, not to mention he sailed with the two of the greatest pirates and even faced off against them. Starting to seem highly possible that it could be him, but let us know what you think. One thing to address before we wrap this up, we mentioned about Toki not being in Wano when she appeared in the flashback of Odin. Well, this is why. It's our belief that she was indeed made to leave Wano, but not for the purpose of being a witch, but rather she was made into a guardian because of her power. Around the time she hailed from is from the time the KOZUKI clan decided to seal the borders of Wano. Given that she had the power of time travel, she could have been assigned to keep jumping ahead in time on the next closest island and ask any travelers if they could take her to Wano to see if the borders are still closed or prevent anyone from trying to enter. In Roman religion, Terminus was the god who protected bordery markers, the borderlines between lands. In Kinnaman's flashback of the 9 red scarabs, reporting to Toki that they have failed to protect Lord Odin, she says, "And finally I have arrived at the terminus on my journey." Now for those who aren't aware, terminus is an old Latin word for terminal or the end, so it appears she's talking about her own life, but there's another meaning to the word, a final point in space and time. What this could suggest is that she herself can no longer jump forward in time, that the range of her power stops there. Time stops there for her, or maybe by sending others, mainly a party of people, prevent her from being able to travel herself, so she's reached her terminus. The fact that she used that word shows that she's from an old time, but we believe that its meaning is to showcase her, Toki, as a terminus depicted in mythology as a god who sees over borders. The Romans believed that sacrifices were meant to be made to terminus like most gods, and this would consist of food, wine and animal blood, but with no sacrifices the god would not look over the lands or the borders. So Toki sacrificing herself ultimately means that the borders of Wano will fall, which in turn will make Odin's dream come true. If you made it this far, well done. That must have been a lot to take in. This theory was written by literally anime. Anyways, what do you think of the video? Please leave comments down below. Please click like, and if you haven't, please subscribe to Flying Panda and join our Discord. The road to 100k starts this year.
Look! 行くぞ!